Welcome back to Bakes on Things. I hope you had a great Christmas with your family and your friends. I hope everybody's safe, happy, filled with food, and ready to enter into a new year shortly. Psyops. We've seen it. We need to know what it is and how it's happening in Canada, because the biggest psyop in Canada right now is Pierre Poilievre. We're going to talk about that today. But first, I want you to take a look at, before we talk about these psyops, the Christmas messages from the two leaders. I want you to take a look at our Prime Minister's message, and I want you to then take a look at Pierre Poilievre's message. And you tell me if the psyop isn't underway right now. Two very different messages with two very different tones. Take a look.
Happy holidays, Canada. In a more divided and uncertain world, the holiday season is an opportunity to slow down, reflect, and focus on what really matters. This is a season of joy for families, and I hope you find time to rest, reconnect, and celebrate with the people that you love the most. For Canadians of all traditions, the holidays remind us that there can be hope after despair, that light follows darkness. This is a time to remember those in need of comfort, those struggling to get by, those grieving a loved one. A time to help with a call, a visit, or an act of kindness that reminds someone that they are not alone. And although this year has brought more than its share of challenges to our country, we've also been reminded that we are fortunate to be part of one extraordinary, generous, and caring nation. That we're strongest when we're united, when we look out for each other, when we take care of each other.
Not exactly a positive tone there, Marky Mark. Now let's take, does Pierre say Merry Christmas right out of the gate and doesn't do the whole happy holidays placating like the Liberals do? He also is extremely positive throughout, with only one line right in the middle talking about the food banks and the need for making things better. But he immediately pivots back to who is making things better, rather than Mark Carney's doom and gloom message, which was just so motivating, Mark, for our Christmas holiday. But the media would have you believe that the first message would have been Pierre talking, and the second message would have been Mark Carney. That's how the media tries to flip it. It's called a psychological operation, or a psyop, and we are talking about it today. Let's go.
Welcome to Bakes on Things.
Welcome back to Bakes on Things. I'm Chris Baker. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join the conversation down below. All right, Canada, let's talk about a word you've probably heard all holiday season. You've heard it online. You've heard it on socials. Maybe you've rolled your eyes at it. Maybe you've laughed at it throughout the holiday season. Maybe you've even said it yourself. The word is psyop. It is a contraction of two words. And before somebody screams conspiracy theorist or liberals get in the comments and say Maple MAGA, let's all be adults for a second and define what a psyop is properly first, okay? A psyop is short form for psychological operation. It's not magic, it's not science fiction, it's not aliens, it's not mind control rays. A psyop is simply this: an organized effort to influence what people believe, what they fear, what they dismiss, and what they accept as truth without needing to actually win a factual argument about that topic. It works by shaping your perception and also by overwhelming your perception. It uses things like repetition, it uses framing, it uses emotional triggers, it uses guilt by association, it uses selective clips like our media loves to do, it uses labels that do the thinking for you. And here's the key point. A psyop doesn't require one central puppet master. Sometimes it's coordinated directly, sometimes it's coordinated indirectly through incentives, shared interests, shared enemies, shared donors, shared networks, shared assumptions, and of course a media culture that rewards certain narratives when they are promoted. So if you hear psyop and your brain immediately goes to secret agents, well, you're kind of missing how this works in modern politics, because in modern politics, it doesn't need a smoke-filled room to pull off a psyop. Modern politics needs a message. It needs a villain. And it needs a repeat button, like a teenager hearing Mariah Carey's Christmas songs for the first time. Now, let's shift to Canada here as part of this topic, because we've seen the psyop of all psyops in Canada recently. If you want to see a textbook modern perception campaign in motion, you are watching it right now in how Pierre Poilievre is being framed not just by liberal politicians, but by a broader ecosystem of aligned messaging. And I'm going to lay out the entire evidence for you. There's one on your screen right now, in a way that any honest person, including if there are some honest liberals out there, can probably follow along before you jump all crazy into the comments that this is some sort of made-up conspiracy theory. When a government or a governing party can't defend its record, it has two options it can take. Option one is improve the record. Actually execute on your promises. Do the work. That's option one. Now, option two, of course, is to poison the pool. Option two is to poison whoever the alternative to you is. And what's the easiest way to poison the alternative to you in politics in Canada? You don't debate their policies. You don't rebut their numbers, because unfortunately for the Liberals, every conservative number thrown at them is accurate and is calling out all of their non-work. You don't tackle them on housing affordability or food costs or taxes or crime or productivity or international competitiveness, because you know you're going to get blown away by it. No, you brand them instead. You label them. You associate them with evil, like Donald Trump. You make them socially unsafe to vote for. You make them too risky to vote for. Ooh, Pierre said what? You make voters feel like they need a shower just before considering voting for these people. And you probably saw it around the Christmas table all Christmas long. And in Canada, the most profitable label, politically and culturally, is this one. He's American style, Pierre is. He's Trump style. He's Canada's Trump. Okay. He's far right. He's extremist adjacent. If you said anything like that at the Christmas table, you're kind of a moron, because those labels are not arguments. They are shortcuts. Shortcuts to a message that is inaccurate. They are designed to trigger a reflex. Nope, not touching that. Nope, not going to do that. That's not persuasion. That's just conditioning. You've been conditioned by the messages you're receiving through the mainstream media. This is what a psyop looks like in real life. So if you talk about the mechanics of it, what you want to see, you see it everywhere, right? A perception campaign. It has a few key ingredients to it, right? First, a consistent framing, a single theme that appears everywhere. Look at this one. If Pierre Poilievre doesn't change the channel soon, he's done. Okay, all right. Multiple validators, right? There's the CBC we just looked at, and now the Hill, right? So not just one validator, but multiple people. Many voices begin to repeat the psyop. Now, there's also a triggering association, a symbol, a slogan, a comparison that emotionally contaminates the target. Think, I don't know, Donald Trump, right? Now, narrative laundering is the fourth thing. Now, what is narrative laundering? Something starts as a partisan claim, then gets repeated as if it's just a thing people are saying now. And fifth, plausible deniability. No one says this is coordinated. They just simply miraculously sound all the same. Poilievre's back, but 5 more fights could define his future. Look, they all start to sound the same. Now, watch how this has been deployed against Poilievre. I mean, this is, you see it here. All 3 of these articles are prime examples. But the biggest thing, Exhibit A in all of this, is the comparison to Donald Trump. You don't have to guess if this frame is intentional or not. It's absolutely intentional, because the liberals need you to think that he's like Donald Trump so they can win your vote without doing any of the work. The liberals themselves have leaned into this repeatedly and openly over and over and over again. It's why people say that at the Christmas table. There were liberal attack ads explicitly accusing Poilievre of importing far-right American-style politics without proof. That's the crazy thing. That's not my interpretation. That's described in reporting about the liberal ad strategy. It is fact. This is important too, because when a governing party chooses one main frame and repeats it in paid advertising, that's not spontaneous commentary. That's deliberate strategy. It is a full-on attack ad strategy. The same thing you liberals think that we should be avoiding in Canada in our politics. But the framing is the same, and then it travels. It travels to international outlets. They start describing Poilievre through the same prism. Trump comparisons, Trumpian air, Trump light, playbook language, right? Because the frame is now in circulation, and that was the whole goal behind the liberal ad campaign, the dirty politics that, again, liberals claim they don't want to play. That's how narrative works. Once the frame is injected into the society, you don't need to keep paying for it. The ecosystem does the rest. It's perpetuated at the Christmas table, as you may have seen. Now, Exhibit B is the Stop the Steal button stunt. Okay? The liberals have played dirty, dirty politics since before the election even happened, but while the election was happening. Because if we get to the part that, if you're being honest, should make you furious no matter who the hell you vote for, in April 2025, there was a reported incident, not even reported, it's proven now, where liberal staffers planted Stop the Steal buttons at a conservative conference explicitly to smear conservatives with a Trump-associated slogan. This story was not only reported widely, it was proven to be absolutely accurate, including by Global News. Let me say that again. Not a commentator said a thing about potentially liberals causing this button thing. No, not some tweet that went viral. Operatives allegedly planted inflammatory props to create the impression that conservative-aligned people were embracing Trump election rhetoric when they were not. They had not even done one thing like that. It was liberals who planted that. Now imagine, they keep doing it with this psyop. That's not debate. That is not democracy. That is manufactured association. And Mark Carney himself called it totally unacceptable. He did during the campaign. When they were caught, he apologized and said he was unaware personally of that, although I'm not sure I believe that. While the party said the staffers were reassigned, not fired, reassigned. And international coverage framed the stunt as an attempt to link Poilievre to Trump-style rhetoric. This is why the word psyop lands so hard in Canada, because that stunt is basically a real-world demonstration of the actual definition of the psyop method. Create a contaminating symbol, and then place it near your opponent, right? Let cameras do the rest. Let headlines do the rest. Let social media do the rest, and watch it all happen. That's not persuasion. That's psychological warfare at the political level. It's dirty politics. The very thing liberals say they don't do. The very thing the liberals claim is American-style politics, they went out and did. And somehow, people across this country believed and let it work. How is that even possible? Now, here's where people get very lazy. They say, oh, it's just a few MPs that did that. Don't worry. I mean, that's not dirty politics because it was just a few bad apples. Or it's just one network of liberal people. No, that's not how this works, my friends. It's not at all how this works. A modern perception campaign isn't one voice. It's a chorus. You get party messaging. You get aligned activists. You get friendly commentators. You get narrative repetition across platforms. You get all of this stuff. You get the same phrases echoed back over and over and over again as common knowledge to try and plant it in your head. Look at how Poilievre equals Trump, that message, and American-style politics, that message, became such a recurring script that even global reporting about the election framed Poilievre's problem as being tied to the Trump association, when he has never once been tied to Donald Trump in real life. And you also see direct political rhetoric, like Mark Carney's campaign messaging, that Poilievre draws his inspiration from Donald Trump. Notice that they couldn't actually say he was associated with Donald Trump because they know that's a lie, but they say they can purport that he draws his inspiration from him. That's not random phrasing. That's brand engineering. Totally engineered, dirty politics. And so many people bought it. And they're not buying it as much anymore. The polls are starting to show that the conservatives, again, are taking the lead and the liberals are starting to fall behind. Now, I want to be very precise here because Canadians finally deserve precision. I think we can all agree we deserve that, right? At this point, can I prove there's a single command center ordering every headline here for Pierre Poilievre? No. Absolutely not. And neither can you, unless you have internal documents I haven't seen yet. But here's what I can prove from public record. Number one, the governing party adopted a consistent, American-style, Trump-like frame in its attacks. That is fact. We have seen it. You know it. And I know it, whether you're liberal or conservative. Number two, operatives were involved in an action designed to manufacture Trump-associated optics in the election. That is fact. It is proven. The leader of the Liberals, Mark Carney, publicly had to address and apologize for that stunt. That is also fact. Media and international outlets repeatedly described Poilievre through the same association frame. Also fact. Number five, the frame is reinforced through repeated language like American style and Trump playbook, or that his people are crossing the floor, or that his caucus is misbehaving, and it happens throughout the coverage ecosystems. That set of facts is enough to support the thesis that a coordinated perception strategy is well underway and has been since the election. Whether it is centrally orchestrated or ecosystem synchronized remains to be defined. And that matters because the outcome is still the same. Voters aren't being asked, do you agree with policy A or B, are we? That's not the headline. Here's Pierre's policy and here's Mark's. No, they're being pushed toward, do you want to risk that kind of person in office? And yet you saw in Pierre's Christmas message, he was the better person. So something is off here. Something is very, very wrong with how the media and really the Canadian ecosystem of politics is treating all of this. Let's talk about the psychological target, because the target isn't necessarily Poilievre, is it? The target is you. You're the target. The goal is to install an emotional circuit in your head about a person, Poilievre, Trump, chaos, embarrassment, danger, not safe, don't touch. But the target is you. The target isn't Poilievre. It's you. And if you choose to not believe this bullshit, which you shouldn't because it's not true, then you win. So here's the thing. If you don't think that this is true, or you don't think taxes, or you don't think crime, or you don't think fiscal policy, when you hear all of these things, then it's working on you. That's the fact. If you think, ugh, that vibe Pierre gives off, that vibe that's going around, well, then they win. And if you're a voter who doesn't obsess over politics, that's sometimes just enough, right? Some of those people around the Christmas table saying Poilievre is Trump North, it's because they don't do any research. They don't think about politics on a daily basis, because most people don't have time to read platforms, follow committee proceedings, or dissect budgets, or watch Parliament on CPAC. So they just believe the headlines. Politics becomes brand selection based on what CTV prints on their main page. And the Liberals understand how that works. It's why they've done it this way. This is why this is happening now, too. And if you ask, why is this so aggressive then? Why are they so aggressively doing this if it's not true? Because the Liberals are governing in a time where trust is very fragile. Affordability is crushing people, and patience with the Liberals is razor thin because we have had a horrific decade. And when you are vulnerable on outcomes, your survival depends on one thing and one thing only: making the alternative to you seem scarier than today's status quo. That's what works. So they don't need you to love them. Mark Carney doesn't need you to love him. What he needs you to do is fear the other guy. That's the math. And it's the same math you see in the incident where staffers allegedly tried to, well, not even allegedly, they did plant that Stop the Steal optics to glue a toxic U.S. association onto Canadian conservatives. That's what the intention was. Didn't work because they were caught, but that was the intention of that. It just proves that this psyop exists and is well underway for a very, very long time. Now, the media has a role here, of course. Let's talk about mainstream media, because it's not just the liberals planting these headlines. This is where people either get cowardly or they get hysterical on all of this. But I'm not going to tell you every journalist is sitting in there in a liberal war room learning about what to do and how to smear Pierre Poilievre. That's just a childish way to look at it. It's not happening. But what I will tell you is this, okay? Think about this. The media environment itself, the ecosystem we've been talking about throughout this episode, has incentives. There's a couple of things. Conflict and bad news sell. We know that. It really sells. Outrage sells. Labels sell. Simplified villains sell. And Poilievre is Canada's Trump is a story template that writes itself, isn't it? It's easy. It's clickable. It travels internationally. And once that template exists, a lot of coverage becomes interpretation through that lens. And fact of the matter is, it's easy ratings. Easy. Just print that and people will come. Even stories that have nothing to do with Trump start getting narrated as if they do. It gets turned and framed that way because the frame is profitable. So again, do you need secret coordination? No, you don't need secret coordination. You need to create the environment that allows this messaging to prosper. You just need the same incentives and the same cultural defaults. So let's talk about the most important point as we start to wrap this weekend wrap up. And that's how much this damages our democracy. This is the part I need every one of you to hear. I need you to share this video because this is the key. If you hate Poilievre, fine. If you love Poilievre, fine. But if you're okay with manufactured associations, planted optics, and narrative laundering, then you're basically saying to all of us, to future generations, to future voters, your 14-year-old kid who votes in 4 years, I don't need real debate. I just need psychological manipulation that helps my team. That's you. If you believe all the bullshit, that's you. And that's how democracies rot from the inside out. Because the next time the stunt is aimed at your side, you're not going to like it. If conservatives went and planted the Stop the Steal buttons in a liberal room, what would you think? See, the Stop the Steal button story should be the line in the sand for anyone who cares about political honesty. Because if you can plant false optics at your opponent's event, what else can you plant? What else have you planted? What else have we heard, read, or seen that was completely false? What else were they able to frame without you knowing it? Because the reality, again, is that the target is not Pierre Poilievre. The target is you and your vote. Now, I don't want this to end with rage, even though I'm getting worked up here. I don't want you to feel helpless in any way. Here's what you can do. First, whenever you see the label Trump-like or American style or far right or extremist attached to Pierre Poilievre, sit back for a second and ask yourself one question. What specific policy are they avoiding discussing by saying that? Second, when you see the same framing repeated across different places, don't just accept it as truth. Ask yourself another question. Who is benefiting from this frame? I mean, I'm sitting here watching it. I'm giving them ratings, right? Who's benefiting? Third, watch for contamination tactics, like the button stunt. That's a perfect example. And it's one that proves the whole psyop is underway. If an image feels a little too perfect, like, boy, they even have the same messaging on their buttons, too made for TV, too designed to go viral, consider the possibility that perhaps it was designed to go viral. Fourth, demand better from this country. Demand that journalists and interviewers ask about concrete policy, not about associations to Donald Trump. Ask about outcomes and accountability without turning elections into a personality smear contest. Because if all politics becomes is this person gives me the ick, then the public is not voting. They're being steered because you're the target. So, is there a psyop against Pierre Poilievre? Probably. Absolutely. If by psyop you mean an intentional, disciplined perception strategy built around a repeated frame over and over and over again, reinforced through stunts, echoed across an ecosystem, and aimed at installing a fear association in voters' minds, then yeah, I would say the evidence supports the psyop thought. Don't you? I think so. But definitely put it down in the comments below. Not because you feel it, not because I feel it, but because we have public examples of the strategy. We have actual receipts and proof, including organized messaging around American-style politics, planted buttons, and ultimately that documented incident is it, where liberal staffers were reported to have planted Trump-associated slogans. And then Mark Carney got rid of the whole "we're reported" thing because he admitted it and then apologized. And if Canadians don't wake up to this kind of manipulation, if we let politics become psychological warfare instead of honest debate, then, folks, it's not going to matter who you vote for. It's not going to matter who wins because you just let the perceptions play the game, because the public will lose every time. And you're part of the public, not the government. So that means you lose. All right, that's my take on the psyop. It's the weekend update. Didn't expect it to be this long, but I do want to hear from you. Do you think this is fair game politics? I'm sure you don't. Or do you think it's poison that's destroying democracy? Put all of that in the conversation down below. So thrilled to be back with you now. It is the weekend update, or the weekend wrap, I should say. And we will be back on Monday morning at 6 a.m. with the first sip. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you Monday.